This time we're back in Dubai visiting one of the most famous ocean liners in the world. Here it is, it's the QE2. Coming up, we take you on a nostalgic tour up close and personal on board this immensely loved ocean liner, visiting all the open areas including those reserved for guests. We find out what it's like to spend a night in the captain's room and tour the ship with former QE2 Cruise Director Peter Warwick. It's a very memorable adventure. The QE2 is one of the most famous ocean liners in the world. It ended its seagoing career in November 2008 with a farewell voyage destined for a new life in the Persian Gulf at Port Rashid, Dubai. The transformation took a decade to come to fruition, and now this majestic relic from the golden era of transatlantic ocean travel is a floating hotel and museum that retains the charm and sophistication its passengers expected, experienced and loved on board. We arrive at the terminal building. This is the hotel lobby, reception and concierge, and where you'll join the heritage tour if you're not staying on the ship. We of course are, and we'll see more of the tour later in the video, so keep watching. Having checked in, we found out that we were only 2 of 3 people staying on board that night. Sadly, COVID has decimated travel around the world, so our night on board was going to be a very intimate experience, a far cry from the 1,900 passengers and can you believe 1,000 crew that would have sailed on the liner at full capacity. Walking out onto the dock, where the ship is permanently moored, you can see it's in remarkable condition, having been well maintained and converted into a floating hotel, a process still continuing in 2021. It's by no means complete. It's well worth noting that the information we mention has been researched online, as we're not regular seagoers, so apologies if some of our terminology or information is not fully correct. Please do let us know in the comments, as well as tell us about your QE2 experiences. As we look down its starboard side, the ship looks huge at 963 feet long, which actually is smaller compared to predecessors and today's standards. It was cleverly designed this way to allow it to dock in ports other large liners couldn't, and more importantly to be able to navigate the Suez and Panama canals when it was used as a cruise ship. Originally built in 1969 in Clydebank, Scotland by John Brown & Co for the Cunard Line, QE2 has just passed its 50th birthday. One of the propellers removed from the ship has been restored and sits on the dock. Made from copper and weighing 40 tons, it dwarfs anyone standing by its 5.8 metre span. This is one of 2 fitted to the liner when it was converted to diesel from steam in 1988. We mentioned the heritage tour you can take around the ship even if you're not staying on board. Peter Warwick, former QE2 Cruise Director, runs the tour and joins us now to tell us an interesting anecdote about the funnel dents.
Dents in the side of the funnel, just to the left-hand side. It's not due to the heat here, but actually from a severe engine fire in July 1975. So severe that even when they remolded the funnel in the Bremer Haven refit for the engines, they couldn't take the dents out. We have here the 4 large windows just to the left of the walkway, shall we say. That was the suite where Nelson Mandela stayed all those years ago. And you can just...
Sorry, which level? Which level?
The four.
Oh, just the 4 there.
Okay.
That
was the Aquitania suite, I believe.
Right.
Midships Aquitania. They were Queen's Grille cabins without a balcony, but they were beautiful inside. And now these suites here, without the cabins at the top there, they were actually added in 1972 as a revenue drive. The QE2 then was losing £20 million a year. Then, and she only cost $29 million to build, so I mean it's quite a loss. And they had to do something to bring some money in, so they added gradually all the balcony cabins. They also took out the second-class library and replaced it with a casino. Now, whether we agree or not with it, it brought in the money.
Now that we've had a good look around the outside, let's climb aboard and see the interior. Oh, we'll take the lift up to the second deck. This walkway was originally only for first-class passengers to board the ship. Later, all passengers passed here to be greeted by stewards in the midship lobby.
This was our equivalent of an atrium, I suppose you'd call it. But very, very lovely. I love this room, and it was a very peaceful area when we were sailing. It wasn't very rocky because being midships deck 2, the movement was quite reduced. The fiberglass in the middle, this sort of mushroom shape, that never changed in all of the years of service. This did change, however, in 1994 in a refit, and actually the blue seats added and the wooden surrounds, and these murals depicting the history of the line to create the Midships Lobby as we see. Going through very briefly, the 1840s, as we said, Britannia, we've got here 1907-36, the Mauritania, the IA saying she was Cunard. We have here Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary. The Queen Elizabeth sunk in Hong Kong in 92, and the Queen Mary still is in Long Beach, California, as a hotel. And the last mural there, really bringing us up to speed with the QE2 these days. And these were commissioned, and the artist Peter Sutton actually painted them back in 94 for the refit.
Let's go take a look at our cabin. Known as the captain's room on the sun and signal decks, these rooms are newly finished and nothing like the real captain's quarters. There are many room types to choose from, right up to the plush royal suite. Our room is in the middle of the luxury levels, featuring a huge bed that was so comfortable, and all the latest features like touchscreen controls and mood lighting, along with USB charging ports. There is plenty of space to hang your clothes, and they provide bathrobes and slippers. A few small drawers, a safe, along with a small fridge that was probably the minibar before COVID. The decor of the room was delightful and what you expect on a modern liner. There are tea and coffee facilities served in mugs that we would have liked to have taken home. And a small table and sofa complete this well-sized room. The marble bathroom has a nautical feel, and the double basins give it a sense of space in a compact room. Everything was sparkling clean, and the branded toiletries did come home with us. The final exciting feature of this room is the balcony, leading out onto the wooden deck where you can sit and watch the ships arrive in port, have a drink, and imagine the crossings of the past. Peter now explains what an original Deck 2 hallway cabin was like.
And here we have on to the left would have been your bathroom, wardrobe here, your twin or bunk or double depending on the configuration, and the wide TV. Now I know for a fact in 1987 this was £650 for 7 nights. I know that because we paid that as passengers. And to be honest, we weren't rich, but what we thought, we preferred small cabin, you only sleep in it, and we can come on the ship more. So we didn't have a window, that was our choice. But conversely, in 2008 for the last voyage, this was £2,000 a night. So I mean, it was a night. And it was full in 35 minutes. So I mean, the whole ship. So I mean, it gives you a suggestion of a cabin as it was in those days. But you see the chest of drawers, very similar to the ones in the museum.
As you wander around the ship, there is plenty of memorabilia to look at, like these posters. It's also easy to get lost in the many spiral stairwells that all look the same. The Pavillion is one of the restaurants on board, and due to COVID the only one open at the moment as it's outside. It's here that you can walk out to the stern of the liner for views back over Dubai, with the Burj Khalifa in the distance. This is where one of the swimming pools, flanked by two whirlpools, was located on one deck. Originally there was another outdoor pool on the quarter deck, but this was removed in a previous refit. It's not the first time the pool was boarded over. The QE2 was requisitioned to the Royal Navy to take troops to the Falkland Islands in May 1982, and the open decks were used by helicopters to land on the ship. Whilst this is a lovely area to sit outside and eat al fresco, I can't help but feel sad that they boarded up the pool to make the bar area. Part of our night stay package included 100% room rate credit to be spent on drinks and food. This was a pretty good deal and allowed us a free evening meal and drinks worth around 600 dirham. Do check out the website under special offers to see what is available if you're planning to book. It was a chilly night in Dubai, not ideal for al fresco dining, but the quality of the food was fantastic, even if the menu was fairly basic due to COVID, and we didn't really pick something fitting for a luxurious ocean liner stay, as some of the prices were quite high. Nevertheless, it was a memorable evening, pretending to be out at sea on the Atlantic crossing. Being guests mean that we can wander around the ship to areas not accessible on the heritage tour. There is plenty to see, like this model of the Mauritania in fine detail, or the grand old paintings, including this famous portrait of the royal couple. Information boards around the ship chart its history through the years and give an interesting insight into its history. This is the impressive Queen's Room, still with its original space-age design. In the day, this would have been used for exercise classes and afternoon teas, switching to receptions and parties in the evenings, followed by ballroom dancing and live music into the small hours. The Grand Lounge spanned across two decks, originally known as the Double Room. The upper deck or double up room had a bar and balcony seating to watch the shows on stage. Later it became the ship's shopping promenade, we'll see that in a minute. The lower deck area was known as the Double Down Room, with more seating, the stage and a dance floor for the main shows of the evening. The Royal Promenade shops were located above the Grand Lounge stage and included stores for jewellery, fashions and fragrances, along with branded QE2 items and a ship's sundries shop. It still retains most of its original fixtures and fittings. It looks in a bit of a sorry state at the moment, as due to COVID this area is currently closed off. Normally it's still open to guests with some onboard shopping. The chart room bar is on the quarterdeck and would normally be open for informal drinks and snacks. Replacing the Midships bar in 1994, it was fitted with nautical memorabilia, most of which is gone now, but the original glass transatlantic route map charting a QE2 crossing still adorns the bar wall. In the evening there would have been a pianist or harpist playing music. In the corner is the Britannia sculpture. This 6-foot-tall figurehead from Charles Moore previously took pride of place in the entrance of the Britannia restaurant. The Yacht Club was a favourite bar for passengers on the upper deck. Still in use today, but not during the pandemic. With its comfy seating and large open areas, this was used for parties and as a nightclub on board. Normally, the open deck is filled with seating for evening drinks and to watch the sun go down on warmer Dubai nights. We now rejoin Peter talking about the casino and the slots on board.
But these machines they added in '72, and this was a hive of industry. I mean, it really was. The transatlantics, I'd say, were busier than the cruises a little bit. In 1978, a lady for 2 hours work, if you can call it work, on one of these won $12,500, which really isn't bad going for 2 hours work now, let alone then. And the highest tip ever given on the QE2, and I saw this, so I know it's a matter of fact, or else I wouldn't have believed it, frankly, was in 1999, and a Queen's Grill passenger gave his waiter for 5 days from New York to Southampton, 5 days, a tip of a Rolls Royce. Wow. That's not a bad tip. I got a Mars bar. But, and that was true. The waiter drove off in the Rolls in Southampton. We never saw him again. But I mean, it was amazing. So, we did have the rich and famous, but they were lovely people. And we had, normal guests, shall we say. It was very much like that. It wasn't snobby at all in my years of service. And this is the Golden Lion pub. I don't know if you were aware it was here.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I love this bar. They changed it really in '94. They thought, it's a British ship. Shall we try a British pub? Would it work? They didn't know, frankly. It was very successful, not only on here, but now on QM2, Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria. So, karaoke nights, Jim Bowen was in here, he was a good friend of mine, many different people do bullseye and all this nonsense going on. These shields around here, I would say 80% are maiden port of call shields. So there's always exceptions to every rule, but similar with the Japanese Warrior, the Boston Cup, that tradition carrying on around here. A lot of these used to hang in the wardroom upstairs, the officers' bar. So a little bit of history really about that. And the furniture here was exactly the same as in 1999. I mean, I sat on those chairs then, and the sofas and so on and so forth. So gentlemen, let's go now upstairs, onward and upward to the captain's bridge.
Did guests find it confusing getting around the ship? Because we have.
Initially, yes, but one tip we always said to them, elevator E goes everywhere. So that really helped, because that was the only elevator that went from boat deck to deck 5. But yes, it was quite confusing to some. You be careful on this side, to come to the left. Now you get the idea of what it was like walking along here, and along here have walked the likes of Julie Andrews, Shirley Bassey, many of the big stars in the day, Her Majesty herself. So we're walking in there. So here we go then into the bridge. Well, the first area we're looking at the bridge are the fumes.
Fantastic.
And this is the wheelhouse, sort of aka the cockpit, shall we say. And, I've been on modern bridges on ships now, nothing like this at all. It's all modern lighting, computers. We simply didn't have that. I mean, you had your old-fashioned radars, you had your bow thruster control, which would help bring the ship sideways in or out of port, your speed telegraph here. And actually, talking of speed, under steam turbine, the QE2 could travel 19 knots backwards, which is quite astonishing. But she did take 45 miles to come to a stop when approaching a port. Equally a long way, from full power to stop. And this is where they would steer the ship from. So, quite a small area, and actually quite a small wheel. I've seen larger than these on toy cars. But this was it. We did have autopilot, so you wouldn't have to stand here all the time. And rarely the captain did, if you want the truth. It was the navigators and so on. There were 4 members of staff on the bridge at any one point, 2 junior and 2 senior officers of the watch. We had a lookout for pirates and ice either side, and also the 2 captains would be on board, because frankly, if one died, you needed a replacement straight away. So that would be how it was. The bridge was manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it was a 4 hours on, 8 hours off watch basis. If any of the ship was in distress, which I'm glad to say she wasn't in her 39 years, to an evacuation point, emergency, the button with the plastic flap over would have been pressed here on that green interface. But this is also where the telexes came in for the bomb threat of 72, for Falkland Islands, when we rescued people from the Antilles in 72. So many different things would come on through these faxes here. But I'd like to show you now, I mentioned the kitchen, I'd like to show it to you, aka the chart room. So if you want to look in here, that's where the captain would sleep through very rough weather, not his quarters, obviously it's a bit too small, but through rough weather. Now for me this is very historic, because if you can imagine, over 20 years ago I was standing here making announcements from this. Good morning, very posh in those days. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for sailing. And my job actually was to try and get people to leave their room, because we would arrive in Southampton at 7, we would sail for New York at 5. Now between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, 900 rooms had to be changed and inspected, so I had to politely say, but very polite. So that's when it all happened. But for me, it's quite astonishing to be here all these years later, seeing myself almost standing here in those days, But now this is the captain's area, and this would be his social little area for the bridge. VIPs were here. For a fact, the Queen was. I say, Julie Andrews certainly sat up here. Many different people. Richard Burton, I think, at one stage. So it really was lovely. And these are the original sugar bowls with your golden lion, hence the name of the pub, crest here, and the gold around there. Royal Dalton. We have the old-fashioned fax machine, everything like it was. And the first thing I hope you noticed was the smell. It's quite old. We wanted that. I didn't want up here to be incense and neon. I mean, I like both, but not in this context. So, it was very much had to be back in time. Here we have even old folders of refit specs of 99. That is original. I flew out for that refit actually in Germany. And the old file of mine, the Cruise Director file. Nothing in it, but nonetheless it was the file I used. If you're wondering what positions I held on here, that just reminded me, I came on as cruise staff, then assistant cruise director, and finally cruise director. That was a great job for panache, but a job I didn't really care for. I like people. I'm not office hiring, firing, no. So it was, I think, a question of the highest paid job wasn't almost the most rewarding, but the lower ranks I really enjoyed. Let's have a look in here, and this was your old staff captain's area, or staffy as we used to call him, but never to his face. And this really was where, I sat in that chair over there many years ago. We discussed, for example, the security arrangements for Nelson Mandela when he came on board in this very room. We have the old-fashioned telephones, which is priceless. We have the huge computer monitors there and your old compass. But one thing that is of great history, I feel, is one of the accident report books that we used in the day. Now, if you turn to the first page, the date is the 9th of June 1976. I mean, this really is a piece of history. And this is all for officers and staff that were injured. And, all handwritten, no emails, of course, in those days. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And you are glancing there through history. I mean, 77 here. We've got... and I mean, the handwriting's pretty good. If I wrote it, you have to do paracetamol with it. My handwriting's atrocious. And it goes right through the years.
Heading back into the hotel foyer, you can see many more interesting artifacts taken from the ship. Original seating from the lounges and bars has been repurposed for hotel guest seating, still in remarkable condition. The bridge bell now is proudly on display. A bust of the Queen from the Queen's Room, having sailed from launch to retirement. A scale mock-up of the tourist class room shows you the levels of comfort, and the many displays tell the stories of the past on board this historic liner. All these items, the tour with Peter and staying overnight on board gave us a complete picture of QE2 when this liner sailed the Atlantic and world oceans. It was truly a memorable stay and one to remember forever. We hope this inspires you to visit and keep the memory of the liner alive for many more years to come. If you enjoyed this trip with us, then please give us a like and join us again by subscribing to future videos. Thank you for watching. Happy travels from the Memoryseekers.